Hello everybody, this is Laura Munson, author of This Is Not the Story You Think It Is, A Season of Unlikely Happiness, and founder of the Haven Retreats in Montana. I'm so thrilled to be here today, thanks to the wonderful BookTrib.com, to hang out for an hour in my little office in snowy Montana where I do all my writing and ruminating, and share some time with you, hopefully answer your great questions and hopefully have some good answers. So let's get going. Gotta wear the reading glasses now. Let's see. Oh, somebody says I look lovely. Thank you. You should. That's the top half of me. The bottom half, I think, still has my pajamas on. All right. So let's get started. We have. Okay. This is Mina DeCaro, who is saying, "Hi Laura, congratulations on your success. I'm sure I will find a lot of inspiration in your book." Well, I sure hope so. I wrote it to help people. I wrote it from a place of service. And whether or not you're in any kind of relationship crisis, the book is meant to help you know that you're not alone and that you have emotional choices when you're going through a hard time. Whatever people say or do to you does not need to define your emotional freedom, and that's a point I can't reiterate enough. So let's see, we have 4D563 who read the New York Times article and found it very interesting, says it must have been a very scary time. In fact, you know, society tells us that when we are in a relationship crisis, that is a scary time and that we are victims, but we don't have to be emotionally. And that's what my book is about. The piece that a lot of people read was in the Modern Love column in 2009. And that was the short version of the memoir that I had already written that was not yet published. So after the tremendous response from the Modern Love column, that's when my agent submitted the manuscript and I got a book deal with the wonderful Amy Einhorn, who is also the editor of The Help. So it's just amazing what can happen when you write your truth in a raw, real way. After years of working on books that weren't getting published, that's the one that got published. I never thought it would happen. So let's see. What or who, this is Allison Collins. Hi, Allison. What or who inspired you to write what you were going through? Well, I write from a place of service. I write to help. I didn't realize that that's why I was writing until a couple years ago when I decided to create an author statement. And I encourage anybody out there to do something like that if you want to write a book, or if you want some sort of, if you want to set your intention for some sort of result in your life. So I write to shine a light on a dim or otherwise pitch black corner to provide relief for myself and others. And I realized I was in a place of service. And so that's what helped me write that book, to write my way through a crisis. I thought I couldn't find a book like that out there that wasn't specifically self-help, that wasn't specifically spiritual, but this just told the story of a woman struggling to not play emotional victim right there at her kitchen sink. I didn't travel anywhere to do it. I sat there and led carpool and went to soccer games and washed dishes and practiced over and over and over again how to not to turn pain into suffering, right? Because pain is inevitable, but suffering doesn't have to be. So that's how I wrote that book, to help myself and other people. Okay, Passion for Fiction says, how long did it take you to write This Is Not the Story You Think It Is? Well, I wrote it in real time. So in the book, it's about a 6-month time slot of my life, a 6-month season. And I wrote it pretty much day by day. Sometimes it wasn't my journal, because nobody would want to read my journal from that time in my life, I promise. The book is still crafted. A memoir still has to be architectural. But I did combine maybe 3 days into one, or I'd maybe go through a week and then reflect back on it and write about it. But I wrote it very much in real time. Okay, this is Sharon Berger. Your book is from a unique perspective and would be fascinating to read. What inspired you to write it? Well, again, I write from a place of service and wanted to help people and couldn't find a book like it. Because so often society says that we have to, in order to be powerful, we have to fight. And I just don't believe that. I think that I'm not interested in getting into that match you one, raise you one, kick them to the curb. The entry point of the book, for those of you who haven't read it, is a marital crisis in which my husband said, I don't love you anymore, I'm not sure I ever did, and I'm moving out. And rather than freak out or beg him to go into therapy or tell him to hit the road, I said, I don't buy it. I think this is a crisis of self brought on by career failure. What can we do to not take down everything that we've created, a beautiful home in Montana and 2 children on 20 acres of land, a little farmhouse where I sit now. And he could have said nothing, I'm out of here, but he chose to take some time to reflect on what was going on. But again, that's just the entry point of the book. The book is really about how to take care of yourself when you're going through a crisis like this, where you're dealing with rejection, whether it's with your boss or with a family of origin member or a teen. I have 2 teens right now, or a spouse. And again, the book is not about staying together. The book is about how to manage yourself in crisis. So what is it to be in the present moment? Sometimes it's just very simple, taking 3 deep breaths, or walking outside and walking to the mailbox and back. Sometimes that's all we can do. But to get ourselves out of bed and moving through our life somehow fluidly. So in my book, you'll see a lot of canning tomatoes with my kids, a lot of cooking, and a lot of really having to let go constantly and remind myself to stay in the present moment. And then this is the big one, to become aware of that internal self-talk, which is so often so brutal. I call her Sheila, and I apologize to anybody out there named Sheila. But I realized that Sheila actually is just the scared little girl inside of me, and there's no need to try to exile her. It's really more about loving her into submission. Like if my child came into my room in the middle of the night scared, would I kick her to the curb? Would I send her back to bed? Would I tell her beat it? No, I would say, come to Mama, let me put my arms around you, everything's going to be okay. And when I started doing that with my inner critic, she got very quiet and very calm. And she's not always quiet and calm, especially when I'm bathing suit shopping. Okay, Liz, 1820, what advice would you give the 20-year-old version of you? Wow, that's a really good question. Well, let's see. The 20-year-old version of me was so hell-bent on becoming a widely acclaimed, award-winning published author that it was a little scary. And I lived that for a long time, dealing with a lot of rejection from the publishing house. I haven't written 14 good finished novels, but I've written 14 finished novels, only a couple of which have been submitted. But it is a brutal way to live your life, to define your personal well-being on things outside of your control. I can't control whether or not the publishing world is going to reject me, or if I get a bad critique, or if my husband says I don't love you anymore. I can't control those things. And I think that when I was 20, I thought I could. And it's a talk about suffering. That is a great way to suffer. And when I dropped that, isn't it funny? That's when I wrote that book, and that's when I got published to wide acclaim. But what I've learned, that all that really is myth. It's all about the work. Doing the work day in and day out, whatever it is that you do with all your passion and all your might and all your integrity. So failure is a myth, and so is success. I had the whole red carpet treatment with the same editor of The Help and the whole deal, 2 book tours, Penguin, Putnam. It was fantastic, went on Good Morning America, etc. But it's really just about waking up every day and sitting here at this desk in front of this computer and writing, and doing it from my deepest, most natural, pure place. So, hope that answered your very good question. So the 20-year-old in me, just work. Stop worrying about the future. And I would say that to the 46-year-old as well in me. Okay, this is 4D563. Do you only write nonfiction, or do you have a novel in your future? Well, yes, I've written all those novels I was just talking about. They're all sitting here, over here in a closet. Stacks and stacks of manuscripts. Not all good again, but I'm currently working on a novel. It stymied me that my first book was a memoir. I never thought I'd be talking about my personal life. I thought I'd be talking more about craft. And that's part of why I've started doing these writing retreats out here in Montana and elsewhere, because I do know so much about the craft, and I do care so much about helping to change the tortured artist paradigm, helping to get people into their creativity, and having it happen in an empowered, nurturing way. So you can learn more about those retreats on my website. They're called Haven Retreats, lauramunson.com. Next question is, what was your husband's reaction when you told him you were writing your book? Good question. Well, I never ever would have submitted that book nor that essay that appeared prior to the book's publication in the New York Times Modern Love section without his approval. You know, when you're reading a memoir and you can just smell that rat that somebody's trying to expose their mother, or they're trying to torture somebody or a place. I'm not interested in writing that kind of expose or to vilify anybody. I think that if you are responsible for yourself, you can write about anything, as long as you do it, I think, with kindness and a focus on yourself, to return to the self and write your experience. That's going to create that arc between the reader and the book, and ultimately it is between the reader and the book, not the reader and the writer, which sometimes the line can get a little skewed when you write memoir that way. So let's see. Next question, Prairie Dawn. What was? Oh no, that was the same. That was the question just now. What was my husband's reaction? Maria Muse. Laura, I haven't attended. Oh, I attended your recent Haven Writing Retreat. Hello, Maria. That was a great group of people, which was a fabulous experience. How did you get into giving these retreats, and what do you hope your attendees will gain from them? Nothing. I'd rather answer more. So a couple years ago, I realized that I had a teaching spirit, and that all these years sitting alone, navel-gazing and writing books was great, but how about all those people out there who are doing the same thing, who don't have a book published and who feel so desperate, or who say, you know, I've always wanted to write that book, but I'm not creative, or I don't have the time. Well, the truth is, you are creative. You got dressed this morning. You learned to speak the English language. You can read a book, probably. You decorated your house somehow. You are creative. And you also do have the time. I wrote when I had 3 jobs. I wrote when I had small children. I wrote when I was depressed. I wrote when I was joyful. I say that writing is my practice and my prayer and my meditation and my way of life, and sometimes my way to life. And I want that for other people, because so often people will say, I'm really comfortable working out, or I'm really comfortable going to yoga, but I'm not comfortable in my creativity. And I want to help people know what it is to be comfortable in their creativity. I can't get myself to the gym, but I can sit down and write a 400-page novel without any problem. So I figured I deconstructed what that was to wake up every morning and write 5 to 8 pages since 1988, really almost every single day. And I realized that I had a lot to teach people about how to bring practice into their daily lives. So I started these retreats. People come out here, and we write and write and write and really talk a lot about practice, in hopes that people will have breakthroughs, figure out where they're stuck, and then be able to bring it back to their daily life, because that's what we really live in, daily life, not retreat. But thanks for saying hi, Maria. Montana misses you. Okay, Teresa Reading. Sounds like you are in a very zen place. Is there anything that you do to stay there? Sometimes I'm in a really not zen place, Teresa, I promise. I'm just a regular gal like everybody else. But I do care a lot about, the things that ground me are being creative. That's one thing. And also living in nature. Not everybody lives in nature that's here on this live chat today. But if you can get out every day and take a walk, I know it sounds so simple, but we get so stuck in our office chairs with our shoulders up to our ears and holding our breath. If we can get more aware of our breath and take some time to be in our body every day, I think that's so important. I also have a couple old horses that when I have the time, or when I make the time, I should say, I go out and play with, and that helps me a lot. But not all of us lives in Montana and has horses. So to those people, I say, just get really aware of how you breathe, how you hold your body, where your tension is. You don't need to go to yoga class for that. You can do that wherever you are. I also read a lot of poetry. Poetry helps me because it's short, and it's full of soul, and it's lean. Sometimes reading a novel or reading somebody else's memoir feels like too much for me. So I read the work of Ted Kooser a lot, Rainer Maria Rilke, the mystic poet, the Sufi poet Rumi, my friend, the wonderful teacher and poet David Baker. Glenn Chamberlain is another poet I love. I read a lot of poetry, and it helps me. Okay, Nicole Davis, what is next for you with your writing? That is a good question. Well, I'm working on this novel right now that I love, and it's a love story, which, darn it, don't you know, every story has to have a conflict, so you can't just write a love story without there being some sort of a conflict at hand, something at stake. And a friend of mine said, just please don't make anybody die at the end. Nobody's going to die at the end, I don't think. But that's what I'm up to. And then I do have another memoir I want to write about the stuff I'm talking about right now, about the sort of mythic trenches of failure and the mythic altitude of success. Sorry about the air quotes, but it's all just a myth. It's just about waking up every day and showing up and doing the best you can at whatever it is you're passionate about, and giving yourself permission to step into your passion and create whatever is your passion. So, Allison Collins, are your family and friends supportive of your writing? Yes, and that really blew me away, because especially with writing a memoir, you'd think that maybe some people would judge you for telling your story or speaking your truth, and in fact it was quite the other way. I had a lot of respect for my hometown, which is Lake Forest, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. I've had tremendous support from my community here, which is Whitefish, Montana, and I've traveled all over the place. I think, again, when you speak your truth and you do it with integrity and responsibility, not trying to vilify anybody, people get behind that and they start to realize, wow, I'm not alone. And I think it's the writers out there that give us permission to know that we're all in a certain level of pain, but we don't have to be alone in it. We can find community. This is community right here today. I'm just this talking head in Montana, and you guys are all out there someplace, but here we are in community. It's pretty amazing. And again, thanks to BookTrib for putting together this kind of community. It's so important. So there's Stephanie Elliott, who's my friend. Hi, Stephanie. Fellow writer, sister, and amazing blogger. Hi, Laura. It's Stephanie Elliott. Just wanted to say hi and that I love seeing you here. Wish I could see you too, Stephanie. You're such an inspiration. Wish we could have wine at the sanctuary in Phoenix again. Yes, that would be fun. Let's do that sometime again soon. Okay, Mina, here you are again. Did your intelligent reaction to the crisis in your marriage surprise you? Did you think you have such a strength in yourself? You know, dealing with rejection as much as I have in the publishing world really helped me, and I think that's something for us all to remember. Look, pain is inevitable. It's how we deal with the pain that counts, right? So I count all those years of this does not meet our needs at this time, these form letters from the publishing world, as gifts, because they have helped me be the person that I am. And so did I think I had the strength? I didn't think about whether or not I had the strength. I think about how I can practice not turning pain into suffering. And again, that breaks down into very small little teaspoon measures. What can I control right now in this moment? What can I control right now in this moment? We can control being on this live chat together. I can control getting in my car. Hopefully it will work, and I can go pick up my kids at 3:30 today. I can control feeding my dogs. I can't control that they actually eat what I feed them. You know, it's really asking yourself how to get out of your way by letting go of the agenda, letting go of the result, and just climbing into right now. And it seems so lofty, and yeah, it seems so zen, but it really isn't. It's actually just all there is the present moment, right? There is no such thing as the past or the future. It's just right now. I'm glad to be with all of you right now. So, okay, thank you for all your good questions. I really appreciate them. This is a lot of fun. The writing life is solitary, so I'm enjoying the heck out of myself right now, and I hope you are too. Okay, Shelley, what do your children think about this book? Have they read it? Good question. I have a 16-year-old, almost 17-year-old, and almost 13-year-old. And they haven't read it. I don't think they have any interest in reading it, at least not now. They know what it's about, and I've been working with these philosophies with them for years. So it's not new news to them, and I don't think they want to hear about them within the context of a marital crisis between their parents. I think they just think, you know, eyeball roll. But I do overhear them every so often giving their friends the same sort of advice about their relationships. For instance, I say to my kids a lot, Nobody can make you mad. That's like playground politics 101. How often do you hear people say, she made me mad, or she made me feel guilty, or she made me cry? It's actually not possible to inject an emotion into somebody else. We have a choice. There is that gap where we have a choice between what somebody says or does to us and how we react to it emotionally. Now, if somebody hits you in the face and you get a black eye, you can't control that unless you're, I don't know, some sort of yogic master. But we can control how we react emotionally to people. So it begins from the beginning, right there in the elementary school playground. She made me mad. It's not actually possible. What if somebody told you that when you were 12 years old? It would have changed my life if somebody had told me as a child that nobody can make me feel an emotion, that it's my choice. I'm not saying that it's not okay to feel mad or guilty or sad. Certainly, feel your emotions. I definitely do. However, I want to powerfully choose those emotions. If I'm going to freak out, I want to powerfully choose to freak out, you know? So, okay, Sharon Berger, you are right about walking in nature. I live in the foothills and walk daily for my health and the beauty. It makes a huge difference. When dealing with a crisis of this sort, what would a normal, is there such a thing as normal, individual do who doesn't write? Okay, I'm just taking a water break. When dealing with a crisis of this sort, what would a normal individual do who doesn't write? Well, again, I think it's just back to the basic stuff. Really, for me, it's cooking. It's going to the farmer's market, if you have one, and just picking out a beautiful ripe tomato and making something beautiful out of it. Remembering to eat healthfully. I have a really hard time when I'm in crisis eating and getting exercise. This does not come naturally to me, so I'll run in here to this office, which I won't show you because it's a total wreck. And I write. So I would say it's whatever comes naturally to you, rather than muscling through life and bracing against it. It doesn't have to be so hard. It's whatever you do that is fluid and in the flow of your life. So if what you love to do is to take a walk, then take a walk. Take 3 walks a day. Remember to breathe deep. I cannot stress that enough. And try to get something to eat consistently. I tend to not eat anything in the morning, and then my blood sugar is all whacked out. Does anybody out there relate with that? I think it's really common, especially amongst women, I think, who are just delivering, wearing so many hats. We forget to nourish ourselves. We nourish everybody else and not ourselves. So just basic stuff. Now remember, I'm not a life coach, and I'm not a therapist, so I really can only speak from my own personal experience. But keep it easy for yourself. And you might want to write down a statement of purpose if you're not a writer. For your life, what is it that you want from your life? It's like people make those vision boards. I've never quite had the guts to make one of those, but I do always have a postcard of something or a picture of something on my kitchen window sink, because that's my safe place. I love my kitchen, and it's always something I really want, like to return back to Italy where I lived my junior year in college. Now, that map of Florence was up there for about 4 or 5 years, but I ended up finally going back. Or a beautiful garden trellis that I always wanted to have in my garden. I put that up there. It took a couple years, but I ended up building it. So I think it's all about setting your intention too for things that you really want to have happen in your life. You have sort of the basic day-to-day, breathe in, breathe out, take a walk stuff, and then you have the goal. And the two of them help us to balance things out. I hope that answers your question. Okay, this is Teresa again. Such great advice. Thank you so much. Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm not a therapist, but thanks for appreciating it. People say when they read my book, it's like talking to a good friend and having tea or a glass of wine with them, and that's a really high compliment for me because that's how I wrote it. I'm not setting myself up to be any guru. I'm just somebody who's willing to share her truth. So thank you. Andrew Masi. If you weren't a writer, what other profession would you want to explore? Oh, what a fun question. Well, I've started this new profession, which I never really thought of, and that's being this retreat facilitator, which basically means I'm a teacher without a degree in teaching, which I think helps me actually. I love teaching. I love helping people figure out how to put their finger on the pulse of what it is that they really want. especially around creativity and self-expression. So that is a new thing that I never thought I would be. I've just spent all these years sitting on my rear end writing books and being a mother. And so I could see being a full-time teacher and having an incredibly gratifying life. You know, then there's things that I don't have the talent to do. My grandmother was an opera singer. I can kind of sing, but I'd love to be a singer-songwriter. It would be the same kind of life I live now, which is like no promises for any money, but incredibly gratifying. So thanks for that question, Andrew. We have Savvy Bookworm. Hi, Laura. Love your glasses. I know. Well, you know what? If you have to wear reading glasses, and most of us do when you hit 45 for some reason, they might as well be kind of cool, don't you think? They're kind of cool. My kids make fun of me. They're all not very cool, but I'm glad you like them. Thank you, Savvy Bookworm. Do you have any tips for aspiring writers that you wish someone told you? Yes. Stop thinking about getting published. Don't even think about it. Just learn what it is to sit at the intersection of heart and mind and craft that is writing. Just get rid of the whole publishing fantasy. It'll happen if it's meant to happen and when it's meant to happen. I walked into Penguin to finally, meet my publisher and meet all the publicity and marketing people, and it was in this fabulous office overlooking the Statue of Liberty, and I had on my very best outfit, which doesn't really meet up by New York standards. And I walked in and I said, I know I'm supposed to be completely terrified right now, but I'm not. I know myself as a woman. I know myself as a writer, a person who spends her days putting words and ideas together on the page. Thank God I didn't get published in my 20s and 30s when I wanted it so badly. And they were so nice. They kind of smiled and sort of relaxed, and they said, maybe it just wasn't your time yet, darling. And it wasn't. I needed to learn my craft. And that's, in these retreats and when I teach classes and stuff, you really can't teach writing. What you can teach people to do is get unstuck and get unblocked and learn how to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into themselves and the way they see the world, and to have permission to play around there. When do we play? It's always about our grade and right and wrong, or good and bad. It's every so often, if not every day. What about giving yourself a chance to play on the page? That's what I'm into, and I play on the page all the time and throw things away that I'll never get published. But though that play is what then informs the construct of a novel or a memoir or a short story or a magazine article I might be writing. Or personal essay. That's actually one of my favorite things to write. Okay, Margie Takala, are you planning any other books at this time? Yes, I'm working on a novel. It's a love story. And I've had 2 characters stuck in a labyrinth in Tulum, Mexico for the last year. And I have no idea how to get them out. Please feel free to come up with some ideas for how this book ends. I'm on page 350, and I have no idea how it's going to end. So there you go, the glamorous life of a writer. Stephanie Elliott, was your writing schedule discussed? Do you have a routine? If you had a choice of either writing or hosting your retreats and could only choose one, which would you choose? That's an interesting one, Stephanie Elliott. My writing schedule, it begins like this. After the kids are off to school, I come in here and I'm very careful about how I spend my time doing social media, email, and how I spend my time writing. And I got very lost when my book came out in self-promotion, in book promotion, because it's like you're trying to get your kid into Harvard or something. You do anything for this book, because especially if you think it can help people. And so I lost my writing practice there for about a year, and that was something that was sacrosanct to me. It was always about the writing. I also developed my writing practice before the internet, and I was reading on a stage in Miami at the Miami Book Fair, and sharing it with some other writers, one of whom was Jonathan Franzen, and I heard him say, no good book is being written today on a computer attached to the internet. And I thought, he's so right. Because even though I have such a strong writing practice, I still fall prey to checking my emails throughout the day. So maybe that's why these characters are still sitting in a labyrinth in Tulum, Mexico, because it's like, oh, that seems hard. I'll go check my Facebook, or I'll go check my, et cetera, et cetera. I think you all know what I mean. It's hard. So to get back into my practice, I stopped working online. I got a computer that was completely offline, and I started writing on that computer. And that helped me get back into the practice of just focusing on the work, the creative work. And I think your second question is, if you had a choice of either writing or hosting your retreats, oh, Stephanie, don't do that to me. Well, the truth is, I do the writing exercises and prompts with the people on the retreat. So can I just hedge that way and say that I would still be writing if I led the retreats? But to me, one balances out the next. It feels very kind of myopic and lonely sitting here by myself all the time writing. I love giving back to people. So if I can do both, that's the dream. And luckily the retreat center is 10 minutes away from where I live. So it seems to be working, and I love it. Hi, Allison Collins again. Let's see. What was your secret craving before and during the writing process? Any stress snacks? What was your secret craving before and during the writing process? This is going to sound so stupid and boring, but oh well. I drink a lot of tea, and a lot of green tea, and I heard Isabel Allende, the writer, say this a long time ago when I heard her speak in Seattle, and I took it to heart and I practice it. And that is, every morning before I start writing, so I do the social media stuff first, and I give it a couple hours, and then I'm done, and I click off, and then I get into the book or whatever it is that I'm working on creatively. And although social media can be very creative, and I have a division of time and space between the social media stuff and, okay, now I'm climbing into the muse, or the muse is climbing into me, and I light a candle. I have a favorite candle here that's this Mexican cocoa candle, and I usually, I'll put a book I really love underneath, or a postcard I really love underneath my computer. Not always do I do that, but sometimes if I'm feeling kind of blocked, I'll do that. And then I make this beautiful cup of jasmine green tea, and that really helps kind of buoy me and separate the email to Facebook chat into the process of creating fiction or nonfiction. So and then the dirty secrets, well, I don't know. I mean, gosh, around 5 o'clock I really like drinking wine, but at 5 o'clock I'm not writing anymore. So I guess that's a dirty snack. Passion for fiction. Do you read your book reviews? Oh, has it impacted the way you view your writing? Thank you for asking that. I read the big book reviews when when Vanity Fair reviewed it, and Publishers Weekly, and the big magazines and newspapers. But if you go to the short version of my book on the Modern Love column in the New York Times online, there were hundreds and hundreds of comments. They had to shut down the whole comment section, and there were a lot of nasty things on there. And I started to read them, and I thought, this isn't good for me. This is just, or it's practice to turn pain into to not let pain turn into suffering. But I don't need that much practice, So if I get Google alerts when people comment on something I've written, and if I sense any negativity, I just don't read it. It's not worth it. It really is not worth it. And then, has it impacted the way you view your writing? I'll tell you what has impacted the way I view my writing, and I worry about this sometimes, and then I'm glad for it other times, and that's now that I have readers, and now that I've worked with such a great editor, I wonder sometimes, when I'm writing, I don't have that free zone I used to have before I got published. I actually now hear my editor's voice in my ear, or I might think about my reader more than I ever did before, not having had readers to the degree that I now do. So I might think, oh, that one reader in Tel Aviv, Israel, really responded to blah blah blah, and I start to want to write it for her, and that's, I think that can kind of infect what you're doing. It has to be more pure than that. You kind of get the noise out of your head, but it's in my heart, and I don't want to get that. It's not noise, it's heart language from one person to the next, and so I consider my reader a lot more now, and I don't. The jury's still out on how that's informing my writing for good or for bad. I'm hoping for good. BookTrib. Hey, BookTrib members, only 30 minutes left to ask your questions and make your comments. Okay, Mina. Wow, that's gone by quickly. Mina, you mentioned your father in your memories and how much you missed him during that critical time. What is the most important thing he taught you? I have a picture of my father here. You want to see this picture of my father and me? This is my favorite picture of my father. I don't know if you can see this. There's Dad. That was the year he died. We were up in Wisconsin at this wonderful lodge we used to go to. There's a chapter in my book called My Father's Blue Duesenberg, and I can't even read it. It's just too emotional for me. But, you know, we're all lucky if we have somebody who's a true advocate in our lives, and my father was just that. And when he died, I guess it was 8 years ago now, it really devastated me, but it also helped me to understand that I needed to be my best advocate now, you know. So that's something I work with a lot, especially when I miss him, and I do miss him like crazy. What is the most important thing he taught you? He taught me that people are the same everywhere. He grew up in a crummy little town on the Mississippi River, industrial town that's now like almost a ghost town. I think the mill's closed, and he ended up being able to, you know, move to the city and lived in this beautiful home and gave us a lot of privilege growing up outside of Chicago. And every night he would walk around the house and come in, and he was such a gentleman in his, you know, Brooks Brothers suit and his wingtip shoes, and he'd wipe his shoes off with a paper towel and then go up and change. It was like having Mr. Rogers for a dad. And I'd go up the stairs and follow him and sit on the ottoman in the bedroom, and he would, you know, change into his khakis and his work shirt and his dirty bucks, and he was adorable. And he was born in 1918. He was 50 when I was born, and he used to say to me, you know, Laura, we're so lucky to live in this beautiful home, and, you know, not everybody lives like this, but I want you to know that people are the same everywhere, that just because you might have a beautiful home over your head, it doesn't mean that can protect you from the hardships of life. And, you know, I get interviewed a lot, and people will say, you grew up with privilege, what do you know about pain? And I think that's such a sad question, because the truth is that money brings you two things, in my opinion: choices and comfort, but it doesn't protect you from pain. And I wish it would be fun to have the privilege I grew up with now. I don't, but I also know the truth, and that's that, you know, the people that I know here who, let's say, have no money, there's a lot of poverty in Montana, they're not any less happy or any more happy because of it, or any less sad or more sad. It's all about how we take care of ourselves emotionally and soulfully that really matters. And I can see that and report that from both sides of the coin, and that's part of what I love to write about, in fact. Okay, what are some of your unpublished novels about? I wrote a trilogy about a logging family, 3 generations, and did tons of research about it. And here in Montana, I would love to see that trilogy published. And then I've written a couple coming-of-age stories. Interestingly enough, at least to me it's interesting, from the point of view of a young boy. I love Salinger. I just recently reread his 9 stories, and if you haven't read that ever or recently, go back and read those. He's a beautiful writer. I never really liked Catcher in the Rye, but 9 stories and Franny and Zooey, whew, brilliant writing. This is Beach Bum Reads. That sounds like fun. Hi, Laura. What was the hardest part about writing This Is Not the Story You Think It Is? What was the hardest part about writing This Is Not the Story You Think It Is? It wasn't hard. It was like manna. It was a lifeline. There was nothing hard about it. The hardest part was figuring out how to protect my the family of origin, and the kids and all the people in my life. I didn't want to expose them, and so I figured out a sort of a device, which was simply just telling the truth. So I'd say, for obvious reasons, you're not going to hear much about my children in this book, period. And nobody ever once said, wow, I wish I knew more about your children in this book. Like, they got it. If you draw the boundaries when you're writing something like that, especially memoir or creative nonfiction, then the reader will accept it usually. It's when you hedge and you sort of pretend and you go around the block on it that people will call you on it. So just come right out and say, I'm not going to expose this member of my family. The only name in that whole book besides mine was the name of my daughter's pet rat, Houdini. I didn't even name my horses in this book, and that was for a very specific reason. It wasn't anybody's business to know more about my private life than I was willing to share in the book. Okay, Margie, when did you first realize you would become a writer? This is a longer story, but I'll tell the short version of it. First I was a theater major in college, and then I was a film major, and I just didn't, I wanted to be an actress, or I wanted to make movies. I did not even think about being a writer until my senior year. I took a screenwriting class because I had finished my major and I just needed like one more elective, and I was totally obsessed. I couldn't stop. It was in those days, remember, before the PC. It was like Hal from 2001: Space Odyssey. You'd go into that computer room and there was like the computer was all around you, and I pulled an entire week of all-nighters. I could not stop writing that screenplay, and it was only supposed to be a half an hour. I wrote a 2-hour full-length feature film, half in Italian, and I brought it to my teacher and said, take this, sure, I was going to get an A+, and that would boost me into like summa cum laude or something for graduation. Well, he called me back the next day, and I got a D- on it. And he said, this is not cinema, take this to the fools in the English department. And so I went all mad and hot in the face and veins bulging up to the English department and said, I'm supposed to bring this to the fools in the English department, and spoke with the dean, and he read it, and then he said, where have you been for the last 3 years? You're a writer. He could have just as easily said, dingbat, idiot. I mean, you're a writer. And I thought, ugh, I don't want to be a writer. That sounds miserable. I don't want to sit there alone all the time and write. But the truth was, I had been writing all along. And that's another example of, I always tried to make everything so hard. I wasn't any good at film. I can't deal with numbers. I couldn't figure out light aperture and the movie cameras. I've always written since I've been little. But it was just too easy, right? You had to make life harder on yourself. And I didn't want to do that once I realized that this is what came naturally to me. And I started my first book that year, 1988, and I haven't stopped since. So, okay, this is Liz, 1820. What are your favorite things to do when spending time with your children? Montana must be a beautiful place for horseback riding. It is. Well, I have 2 horses, and I live in the woods, and I live 20 miles from Glacier National Park, which is like, if you Google like Mountain Majesty, up will come Glacier National Park. It's stunning. And I just try to get out into nature as much as possible. And I don't always do it because I am sitting here working all the time. But I love to cook. I have a garden. I care a lot about my garden, and mostly a perennial garden that I've had for the entire 20 years that I've lived here. So every time those delphinium come up in late June, it's like seeing an old friend. Here's Savvy Bookworm again. Do you have any funny writing quirks? I don't know if this is funny, but the way that I keep myself going is that when I finish writing at the end of the day, I force myself to write like another paragraph or another couple of sentences, even if I think it's completely not good. And then the next day, and then at the end of the day, if I can possibly fit it in, and I try to at all costs, that's to take a bath. And I print out what I've written that day, take it up to the bath, and then I edit it so it's like all puckered and wet and dripping with ink. And then the next morning, when I come to my desk, I have that starting point, and I start to plug in. This really helps if you're stuck and you're writing, to have it all edited the night before, then come in and then just start plugging in your changes, and you're in the story. It's like you don't even look back. You're just already in the momentum and design of it. And then to always get yourself to that next couple of sentences gives you a launch pad for the next day once you finish plugging in all of your changes. Those, I don't know if you'd call them quirks, but they're great tips. And yeah, maybe editing in the bathtub is a little quirky. Teresa, you mentioned that you are not a life coach. Have you considered something like that? Well, when I lead the retreats, I do a lot of coaching, but it's writing coaching. So it's within the context of the written word and the prompts that I put together. I design the retreat that I would want to go on. And so, like in the morning, it's all improvisational stuff. No comments, no criticism, just the power of playing on the page, reading it out loud, whether you're terrified or not, and having people just receive it with no comments. When do we get to do that in our lives? Nowhere. And then the evening class is a time where people read out loud something that they've written that they've either brought with them or they've written that day based on the writing prompt that I've given them. And then in the afternoon I do one-on-ones with people, and it's in that time that I sort of do feel like a coach. Not a life coach. I don't want to take that on. But, you know, the written word is so powerful that you end up having the same sort of breakthroughs. I had one woman say, this 3-day writing retreat taught me more than 20 years of therapy, or whatever it was that she said. Because we also do really other cool stuff like meditative, guided, silent walks in nature and equine-assisted learning and breathing, yoga breathing and stuff like that too. So, so no, I don't want to be a life coach, but I do want to help change the tortured artist paradigm and help people climb into their creativity, no matter where they are, whether they haven't written anything since high school or their last Christmas letter, or if they're a published author. So, okay, Shelley says, what advice do you have for someone who stays with their boyfriend out of comfort? Oh boy, that would be a great question to ask a life coach, in fact. I don't know. I think that is it really that comfortable? I mean, how do you define comfort? Is there suffering in that comfort? And if so, you know, maybe focus in on how to balance out the level of suffering and the level of comfort, because if you're not truly being met, then is that really comfortable? I don't know. Again, I don't have any business answering questions that would be better answered by therapists, but I would just kind of get more mindful and aware of really what's your definition of comfort, and is it worth it? So Allison, do you still keep a diary/journal of your current experiences? Yes, I do. You know, I tend to only write in my journal when I'm on an airplane. So if anybody ever finds my journals, they'll think that I'm absolutely whack job nuts, because I always think I'm going to crash. So it's like the last thing I want people to know about me before the airplane goes down, and I'm a complete nut. But I think it's a really important part of the writing practice to write in your journal, and write in a way that's with total abandon that nobody's ever going to read, hopefully. Nicole Davis, wish I could stay for the last 15 minutes. I have to pick up my son. It was great to hear you talk to us, and I look forward to your next book. I look forward to my next book too. And Nicole, thank you for being here, and have fun with your boy today. And there's Kathy McCarthy O'Neill, one of my most amazing fans and friends. Would you consider writing another memoir? I would consider writing another memoir, but I don't want to have that come after my last memoir, because I don't want to be pigeonholed as a memoir writer. Fiction is my true love, and that's what I'm working on. So we'll see if I can pull it off. I think I can. Beach Bum reads, if someone came to you about turning any of your books into movies, what would you say? Well, they have, and it's a challenge, because when it's a memoir, because it's your life, and really you sign over everything to them for the most part. I think that contractually you can play around with that, but mostly you sign it over to them. If it was a novel, maybe different. My friend Jim Harrison, and my favorite writer, he wrote the novella Legends of the Fall, which, you know, he's sort of an indie kind of quirky writer, and ends up having Brad Pitt and Aidan Quinn, whoever, you know, star in it. And Jim likes to say, it looks like they all had a laundromat down the street, because their shirts were so perfectly pressed. It was a beautiful movie, but even with a novel, what's in your mind rarely comes out in what comes out on screen. I thought that they did a terrific job with Life of Pi, didn't you think? I mean, I couldn't believe how they were going to pull off that beautiful book on screen, and I think they did it. But yes, I'm always open, but I'm always a little leery about that. I'd much rather have a novel made into a movie than a memoir. So, Passion for Fiction has social media help to connect you with your readers. Do you think authors are put off by interacting with their fans on the internet versus in person? I think that, let's see, has social media helped to connect you with your readers? Absolutely. I mean, here's a great example of it. Thanks to BookTrib, we're all hanging out for an hour chatting. You have to have boundaries around it, though. Otherwise, it will consume all your time and you'll never write anything. I love that I can contact my reader directly and vice the verse. I think it's fantastic. For years I've wanted to contact different favorite writers of mine, and I've been daunted by the idea of sending it through their publisher. Like, they'll never get it and they'll never read it, and their assistant will get it. And it's amazing to be able to find so many amazing authors on Facebook that I love. In fact, Kelly Corrigan and I have met. She's a wonderful memoir writer of Lift and The Middle Place. She and I are doing a gig in San Francisco next week, where we're going to Books Inc. in the marina, and we're going to interview each other, and we have no idea what the other person's going to ask. I just did this in Chicago with the Chicago Tribune author and writer Jennifer Weigel, and it's a lot of fun. If it wasn't for social media, I don't know if I would have ever really met those people. So it's a great support system. You just have to be careful about creating boundaries. Okay, this chat is, but wait, oh, hang on, scroll up. VL Grossman, hi Laura, this chat has been great. Who would you want to play you in a movie based on your book? I don't know, Liz Gilbert already took Julia, so I don't know, I'm kidding. I don't know. I like people like Laura Linney. She's really cool. I don't know. You tell me. What do you think? Somebody kind of subversive and different, maybe. Andrew asks, did you have any say in your book cover, or was it chosen for you? What a good question. You don't really have as much say in your title and book cover as, this is not the story you think it is when it comes to choosing your book title and your cover, but the amazing Amy Einhorn and all the people at Penguin were great in running different ideas by me. And when they came up with the horseshoe, I thought, really? Luck? It wasn't luck that got me through that time, but then it reminded me of a scene where my horse half throws a shoe in the woods during that time, and I pull it off, and I realize my horse is lame, and it made me think about, like, just what is it that makes us feel strong in our lives that's actually just an armor that's not real. And I ended up writing a whole scene because of that cover in the book that is one of my favorite scenes. So you have to look at it all like there are no accidents. And the title originally was something else, and they took that title from my New York Times piece, so it's my writing. And at first I thought, oh, it's so full of assumption. It's like, this is not the story you think it is. Like, I know what you think. I didn't like that. But the more I've lived with this title, I realize these people are brilliant in the publishing world, because it establishes an immediate conversation. Like, really? What is the story I think it is? And then you start interacting with the book. And so I've been really happy with the title and the cover. Shannon, hi Shannon. I read your book at a time of crisis in my own life. Just want you to know your words truly helped me navigate that time with grace. Thank you. May we all be able to navigate with grace, and when we don't, may we forgive ourselves. Thanks, Shannon. All right, BookTrib, we only have a few minutes left before we wrap it up, and Laura will announce the winners of the free giveaway. All right, so get your comments in. Let's see, Beach Bum reads, what is one item you always have to have in your purse? My purse is a disgusting mess. It's like Mary Poppins pulling the coat rack out of it. But I really need lip stuff. I'm all about little lip stuff. And I really like this one Aveda product. They're not paying me to say that. Would you be willing to Skype with the book club? Yes, go to my website, lauramunson.com. There is an option to hire me to come in and beam in to your book group, and I love doing that. I'm also, on all the usual suspects, Twitter. I almost was a Twitter quitter, but I realize, again, that's just an amazing community, and I've met friends through it, and Facebook I'm addicted to, and Pinterest and Instagram and all of it. Let's see, Teresa, I knew about not having a say in the cover, but I didn't realize that you didn't have control over the title. That is interesting. What did you have the book? The book was titled At This Moment in My Life, which is not a good title. But the book was all about living in the moment. But I've never been good at naming anything, including my children, dogs, books. So I was happy when they came up with it. And leave it to the smart people out there, because I'm not good at that. I can write the book, I just can't give it a name. Oh, Stephanie, yeah, at this moment in my life is the original title. Passion for fiction. What books are you currently reading? I am currently reading, actually, because they're all right here. You know what what's this book? I am reading this book by J.R. Moeringer. I can't pronounce his last name, called The Tender Bar. Oh my God, what a beautiful, beautiful book. That's what I'm reading. Trying to fit this all in before we're done. We only have 5 more minutes. Love to shoot. Finally, I can let you know that I've been watching this to support you. My computer's not been playing well. Oh, you're sweet. Thank you for saying that. Whew. Okay, 5 more minutes. I think soon I'm going to find out who our winners of our grand giveaway are. Shelley Mead, have you gotten any strange messages from fans on Facebook or Twitter? Do they seek advice often? You know what? I don't give advice, so people don't really seek it, because I'm not in any position. I can give you tons of writing advice and publishing world advice, but personally, I just am a woman who wrote my way through a crisis. So, it's funny. Again, if you write with integrity, people sort of leave you alone that way. I haven't had really any freaky stuff go on. It's been great, except for, at the beginning, people like, I turned down the Oprah Winfrey show because they wanted me to go on in this really weird context that I just thought I could never escape, and so it was more the media that kind of freaked me out. But nobody asked me to sell out. Nobody changed the integrity around what I was doing. It's been a total treat to see. If you show up with integrity, people receive you that way. Okay, I'm going really fast right now because I think we have a giveaway going on. Let's see, what are you going to write next? I'm going to try to finish this novel. Wrote my way through crisis. I like that. Yep, I wrote my way through crisis. That's so true. Got 4 more minutes. Thanks for being here. Really enlightening. I'm glad, and I'm glad you're passionate for fiction. Passion for fiction, because I am too. Read Salinger 9 Stories if you haven't recently. All right. Allison, what a great quote. And then now we have Jagged Otter. Do you have a guilty pleasure TV show? Yes, I do. Jagged Otter, the Ellen DeGeneres show. I watch it every single day. I DVR it, and I really love Jimmy Fallon, and I watch that if I can stay up late enough. And then sometimes if I can get myself on my treadmill and away from my writing desk, I watch The View. Can you hear that? I like The View. So those are the 3. I rock, apparently. Haven, let Haven 213 know you were on. Lots of support. Okay, well, you guys, yeah, feel free. Go to lauramunson.com, and all my events stuff and Haven stuff is there too. And then hopefully I'll have a new book out soon enough, and hopefully it will land in your hearts and laps. Favorite movie of all time? Oh, come on. Favorite movie of all time? The original Splendor in the Grass with Natalie Wood. Oh, I love that movie. I'm a sucker for old movies. I will definitely read it when I get the chance. Okay, good. I could stay on favorite movie of all time for a while. I really got into a weird Ingmar Bergman phase of my life. Love Woody Allen. Mina, great interview. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Mina. Thanks for coming. And Robin, you are such an inspiration. Okay. Would I ever consider getting married again? I don't know. Don't ask me that question. You can personally text me on that one. And BookTrib, wow, what a great chat. Thanks to everybody for submitting. Okay, here we go. Drum roll. Laura, please announce the official winners of This Is Not the Story You Think It Is. We have 4D563. I feel like I'm doing like lotto numbers. Maria Muse, Nicole Davis, Allison Collins, G. Mastusk, M-A-S-T-U-S-K, Mastusk, Love to Shoot, Mina DeCaro, Stephanie Elliott, Shannon Gigliardi McDonough, and Margie Takala. Those are challenging names. Thanks, you guys. All right, well, congratulations, and I hope you like the book and you pass it along to people if you think it can help them. And we just have 1 more minute. I thank you guys all for being here, and I hope you have great evening wherever you are. Remember to take a nice deep breath and follow your bliss. Okay, I think we're done. You won, yay! Actually, I have one more minute. Thank you so much. Love your work. Good. Come on out to Montana and play around on the page at Haven Retreats. They're the best. All right, guys. Take care. Have a great night. Yes, you won. Stephanie won. Thanks, Shelley. All right. Take care. Bye, you guys.